Here at leading presidential candidate Lai Ching-te's campaign headquarters, he's announcing his running mate, former envoy to the US, Hsiao Bi-khim.
Neither Ko Wen-je nor Hou have managed to agree to a much-awaited joint ticket, and they have just a few days left to sort it out. Taiwan's medical workers band together to demand better working conditions instead of a workforce increase. Plus,
the long-anticipated Taipei Dome has held its first open-door trial baseball game to test its facilities ahead of an official opening.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Philip Broussard. Presidential candidate for the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, Lai Ching-te, has named Taiwan's former de facto ambassador to the U.S., Hsiao Bi-khim, as his running mate. Rick Lowert reports.
Until just hours ago, Hsiao Bi-khim was Taiwan's representative to Washington. Now, back in Taipei, the diplomatic heavyweight is taking on a new role. She's officially running for vice president, joining the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's ticket with presidential hopeful and current frontrunner Lai Ching-te, himself the incumbent VP.
因为我觉得外交就如同猫的步伐，在踏出每一步都要小心翼翼，时而轻柔，但也坚定。在驻美期间，我坚守立场，妥善处理议题，在复杂的战略环境当中维持平衡，将台美关系最大化，也让其他理念相近的国家更支持台湾，支持台湾的国际参与。
The announcement comes as no surprise. 52-year-old Hsiao has long been slated as Lai's running mate in January's elections. She spent years as a legislator for the DPP and recently made a name for herself as envoy to the US, Taiwan's biggest ally. Hsiao is an obvious choice for Lai and his team. She's a skilled diplomat, trusted by Washington with proven experience of standing up to China, which claims Taiwan as part of its territory. Just days ago, she hosted the Taiwan delegation to the APEC Leaders Summit in San Francisco, further cementing Taiwan-US ties as China tried to undermine them. Facing increased Chinese aggression, Taipei relies on the US to supply the weapons it needs to defend itself and to counter Beijing's narrative on the world stage.
I think that she has this amazing fluency, not just of language, but also of strategy that she's become very well known for, right? There are so many ways to get people to care about Taiwan, and she has become known for being able to leverage the right talk track for the right audience, for the right reasons.
At home, Hsiao could bring new life to Lai's campaign. He's ahead in the polls and seen as a natural successor to the current administration, but has been struggling to attract younger voters.
She is viewed as a moderate in Taiwan, and she appeals to the younger voters, the more moderate voters, the very educated voters. And so I actually think, she can bring to the DPP some of the more independent voters that may not in the past feel like, they have that strong DPP affiliation.
It is geopolitics, specifically Taiwan ties with China and the US, that plays an outsized role in Taiwan's presidential elections. By naming Hsiao as his partner, Lai Ching-te is hoping to show he has the leadership to manage these delicate relations. Scott Huang, Luffy Li and Rick Lowert for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's opposition has just a few days left to come up with a joint presidential ticket. But divisions between the two main parties remain deep, and if there is a breakthrough, it's likely to come at the very last minute. John Van Trieste has this report.
What this man and this man do in the next few days could decide Taiwan's future. TPP candidate Ko Wen-je and Kuomintang candidate Hou both want to end the Democratic Progressive Party's 8-year hold on the presidency. Polls show most voters want the same thing. But less than 2 months before the election, the opposition's deeply divided. To improve their chances, these two need to join forces. The problem is that there can only be one president at a time. Someone will have to drop out and be the running mate. And while many voters are happy either way, neither Ho nor Ke are willing to give up on their chance to be Taiwan's next leader. The two have agreed to use opinion polls to decide who should drop out, but still disagree on the details.
国民党不止让了3次，统计误差范围内，这就是一个科学，不是侯友宜说的算，也不是柯文哲说的算。
Ke, in particular, looks set to hold on, no matter what.
我不会违背民意，我也不会背弃你们。为了终结人民的痛苦，我会释出最大善意，团结一切可团结的力量。但是，我会继续用台湾民众党总统候选人的身份拼战到底。
Time's quickly slipping away. Candidates only have till Friday to formally register. The Kuomintang has suggested Wednesday as a deadline for deciding a joint ticket, but such dates have come and gone before. If a joint ticket comes together, it will be at the last second. And if not, polls show a tough road ahead for a fractured opposition. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
To find out more about what went wrong in the deal between Taiwan's opposition parties, Ed Moon spoke to political analyst Courtney Donovan-Smith.
The potential deal between Taiwan's largest opposition parties for a joint presidential ticket has fallen through. Can you explain to us what happened and why the deal fell through?
During the negotiations, Ke Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party, he told his Kuomintang counterparts that he would accept anything within the margin of error of 3% on opinion polls, that he would give the points allocated to Hou Yu-ih of the Kuomintang to become the candidate. Now, that was interpreted differently by both sides. He interpreted that as meaning plus or minus 1.5% on the opinion polls that were accepted by both parties. The Kuomintang accepted this as plus or minus 3% on the opinion polling accepted by both parties. In the end, of the opinion polls accepted by both parties, according to Ke Wen-je's definition of it, it turned out that they came out at a tie, and the Kuomintang's interpretation of it came out that Hou Yu-ih won 5-1.
Do you think there's any chance that the two parties could still combine? What hurdles are there to another deal?
Well, Ke Wen-je yesterday said that he was going to run to the end as the presidential candidate, which means that he's not going to tie up with anybody else as a vice presidential candidate or as any kind of partner. He had faced a lot of pushback from within the party before, because he had previously pitched the party and himself as beyond pan-blue or pan-green, meaning that he was something different than the KMT and the Democratic Progressive Party. Now, at the end of the day, if he wins the presidency, and there are still possibilities and routes where this could happen, I do think that he might try and form a coalition government of some kind in the end.
If there's no deal, what does it mean for the race going forward?
The KMT is still definitely has a chance to make big gains in the legislature, and I think they're going to focus on that. And I believe that party chair Eric Chu is focused very strongly on that. I think all eyes right now are on what Terry Go is going to do. He hasn't been releasing his schedule to reporters for quite a while now, so it looks like he may drop out, but you never really know for sure because he's a mercurial personality. So we have to kind of wait and see what he's going to do. There's still a remote chance that something may happen between the KMT and the TPP, which could also reduce the numbers in the race. My guess is that it will be a 3- or 4-way race.
That was our reporter Ed Moon speaking to political analyst Courtney Donovan-Smith. Medical workers in Taiwan are demanding improvements to working conditions, saying the government is looking at temporary solutions to an institutional problem. Tiffany Wong has the story.
Long hours, low wages. Nearly 1,000 medical professionals protest their work conditions to a popular show tune. They gathered outside Taiwan's presidential office demanding government support. Thousands have left the profession in the past year. And though the government is treating it as a labor shortage, these protesters want instead to limit the number of new personnel.
容量管制是什么意思？一个水杯已经破洞了，人都跑光光，你在那边加水加人是做什么？
Medical workers say what's needed are incentives to keep experienced professionals in the field. And they're asking the health ministry to reconsider a plan to increase the number of new professionals by making licensing exams easier. The workers say this would only be a temporary patch that could make matters worse later.
我们占世界上药师的比例已经是世界第2了，已经是1:15的这个比例。如果再继续增加下去的话，就会有很多的流浪药师。
Despite the protests, the health ministry maintains that Taiwan still needs more workers to keep up with demand.
年纪大的人多起来了，那当然就有那个职能治疗师啦、语言治疗师啦这种之类的人员的一个需求。 那总不能说就定死在那个地方，都完全都不能增加。
Medical workers say the government won't be able to fill quotas without first improving working conditions, taking care of the doctors and nurses already in the industry, so that they, in turn, can properly care for their patients. Howard Zhang and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
The newly completed Taipei Dome has opened its doors to the public with a baseball game attended by a crowd of 13,000 people. Leslie Liao was one of them.
"13,000 baseball fans eagerly watch a game at the Taipei Dome. This has been a moment 30 years in the making. Talks to build a sports dome began back in 1991. Now the venue is finally complete and hosting its first public baseball game. But even as people are let into the dome, concerns have loomed over its usability. Before this public game, the venue staged 2 closed-door games to test it out. One coach pointed out a potential safety hazard.
他那个铁柱子离选手太近，怕如果选手去跑去接外球，有可能会撞到那个柱子。
Those metal posts hold up nets that prevent hard-hit balls from hitting spectators in the seats. But there's also concern that players in the field can run into them and get injured. Baseball enthusiasts also have misgivings about the overall color scheme. The dome seats are black and white, and there's concern that fielders might lose sight of fly balls among the similarly colored seats. And for balls that are hit higher up in the air, well, the checkered roof and bright lights of the dome might also be a problem. But it seems that after the game, players, coaches, and experts alike seem to agree the dome's seats and lights are not a deal breaker.
可能观众坐了以后，就座椅的问题应该就解决了。昨天练习跟今天比赛看起来大家都还 OK， 并没有会被吃掉的感觉。
其实现在也是可以接受，只是说如果未来有办法去上一点颜色，我觉得就是同一个颜色可能会比较好。我们选手可能看球是什么话会比较不被影响到。
A lot of times when we go to a new stadium and new venue, we got to play a few more games to get used to it.
The game here is a trial run to test not just the baseball field, but also fan facilities. While 13,000 fans came in this time, the building can seat up to 40,000. That's double the capacity of New York's Madison Square Garden. The building occupies a busy part of Taipei, and the crowds leaving the venue after major events might be an issue. Taipei Mayor Jiang Wan'an arrived early on the day to make sure capacity and crowd control measures were in place.
其实来到大巨蛋这边搭乘捷运以及公共运输工具是非常的方便，所以这个部分我们也希望在观赏完比赛之后的离场，大家也能够依照我们相关人员的导引。
The subway station closest to Taipei Dome was all hands on deck hours ahead of the game to prepare for big crowds. But there were no major snags vacating the venue as spectators started leaving early before the game finished. After 3 decades of waiting, the public finally got a chance to experience Taipei Dome. Though more time will be needed to fully iron out its wrinkles, it seems that fans, city officials, and venue organizers can breathe easy knowing its debut so far has covered all the bases. Patrick Chen and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, where is the best place to escape the hustle and bustle of Taipei City? We'll tell you after the break.
in the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
For more stories from here in Manzu and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
We bring you stories from Taiwan every day of the week.
Our reporters travel the nation.
Exploring the issues that matter to you. News from here in Taiwan and around the world.
What's up, Taiwan? On TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. North Korea says the U.S. is creating what it calls a new arms race through a planned sale of advanced missiles to Japan and South Korea. A report in North Korean state media says that the weapons would raise tensions in the region. Japan plans to buy 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the United States, a deal worth over $2.3 billion US. Washington is also set to approve a sale of anti-air missiles to South Korea. That follows a year in which Pyongyang has stepped up its own weapons program. More than 500 Rohingya refugees have arrived in Indonesia's Aceh province after many days at sea. They are the fourth wave of arrivals in a week, bringing their numbers there to more than 1,000. A UN official says the new arrivals need bigger temporary shelters to house them all. More than 1 million Muslim Rohingya have fled Buddhist-majority Myanmar to Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Malaysia since 2017. That's when Myanmar's military launched a campaign to drive the minority ethnic group from the country, a push the U.S. has called genocide. Ukrainian soldiers who've lost limbs in the fight against Russia are refinding their strength with Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Bryn Thomas looks at how they're recovering from the brutality of war through the practice of the gentle art.
It doesn't matter if you get knocked down. What's important is getting back up. These Ukrainian war veterans are competing in the para-jiu-jitsu division in their country's capital, Kyiv. They've suffered severe injuries or amputations fighting Russia's invasion, and after the hardship of war, they're finding new strength in the practice and community of jiu-jitsu.
Це не просто сидіти там вдома, не валятися, ти займаєшся спортом і для себе якийсь бачиш прогрес, ти не просто на візку там чи з протезами ходиш, себе зовсім по-другому відчуваєш, забуваєш про те, що тебе чогось там не вистачає, і тут в колі таких самих хлопців, тобто дуже все класно.
Jiu-jitsu is described as the force of leverage against brute force. Through technique, a smaller, weaker fighter can defeat a stronger opponent. It's a notion familiar to people in Ukraine. Russia invaded in early 2022 with a far larger army, only to be stymied by a smaller force with better tactics. Some 20,000 Ukrainians have lost limbs in the fighting. Some of these are now excelling in a sport where technique can make up for physical limitations.
Бразильське джиу-джитсу – це від спорту, від активності, які ми можемо робити. Ми – це люди з ампутаціями.
But the process isn't easy. Perfecting the gentle art takes years of drilling, managing injuries, and patience. The best in the world will tell you it takes perseverance, grit, and sacrifice. It's something these vets know a thing or two about.
Я отримав дуже важке поранення на околицях Азовсталі, потрапив в полон, після полону вийшов. І зараз вже бігаю, тренуюсь, займаюсь, і хочу сказати, що джиу-джитсу – це такий дуже адаптивний спорт, який підходить для людей будь-якої фізичної підготовки, і він дуже адаптивний. Якщо в тебе немає там якась травма, відсутня кінцівка, то це навпаки буде тобі плюсом в деяких випадках.
Це все ще розминка. Jiu-jitsu is a game of inches. Small, subtle movements often translate to big, match-winning outcomes. The ongoing war has laid many people in Ukraine on their backs, but by learning jiu-jitsu, some are getting back on top, 1 inch at a time. Dolphin Chen and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Scientists have recorded global temperatures passing a dangerous threshold for the planet. The EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service says the average global temperature last Friday hit more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. This is seen as a critical limit to avoiding catastrophic climate change. It comes amid severe heat waves in Brazil and months of record warm temperatures around the world. Whales and dolphins have been beaching themselves on Taiwan's shores in record numbers. In 2020 alone, nearly 200 were stranded on land. Our reporter Sandy Chi explains why.
A baby dolphin struggling for its life on the beach. A heartbreaking scene, and one that has become more common on the shores of Taiwan. Taiwan's oceans are home to nearly 30 species of whales and dolphins. That's 1/3 of all species on Earth. But over the past 10 years, the number of these marine mammals stranding themselves on Taiwan's beaches has doubled. The latest incident happened in northern Taiwan this September. Beaching is deadly for these creatures. Less than 1/3 of beached whales and dolphins are found alive. Experts say there are several reasons behind these tragedies.
可以分为就是自然因素跟人为因素嘛。那自然因素大概有15%到20%的几率是因为疾病而死亡的，每一年大概也有20%到25%的鲸豚死亡个体是因为渔业活动的关系。那5%左右会有的个体，所以会身上会出现一些异常的骨裂啊，或体表有螺旋桨切割痕。
Before 2015, fewer than 80 animals were found on Taiwan's beaches each year. But that number started to climb in 2016, reaching 94. It peaked in 2020 at 160.
那2016年是离岸潜力风场公告后的年份。那在苗栗地区，2016年以后的搁浅数据比2016年以前多了83%。风场的施工也不是只有打桩才会造成鲸豚搁浅的，就是风场的船只的行为，那以及其他的探竿行为，这些种种的因素都会造成鲸豚被干扰，就导致搁浅的风险上升。
鲸豚最大威胁来自于人类，那都跟我们的人为活动有关。
The death of a few individuals may not seem like much compared with the estimated 2.2 million whales and dolphins on Earth. But these deaths can have an outsized effect on the planet, especially when it comes to climate change.
有国外的学者就是说，一只大型的鲸类大概可以等同于应该是200万美金的一个价值。这个学者他们在换算的过程当中的时候，其实是把生态系也考量进去。
Experts say one large whale can absorb 33 tons of carbon dioxide each year throughout its life. That's about as much as 3 hectares of forest. And all this carbon stays in the ocean when they die. Their dead bodies sink to the seafloor, where they provide food for other organisms. The World Cetacean Alliance says it's important for the health of the ocean and our planet to restore whale populations. Some may say a whale's life is worth exactly $2 million. But for many others, those lives are priceless. Isan Chen and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Scientists have teamed up with volunteers to record noise pollution around Taiwan's capital. As Laurel Stewart explains, they created a map to help residents find some peace and quiet.
Searching for silence, or at least the sounds of nature. Scientists from Taiwan's Academia Sinica have teamed up with a local NGO to monitor sound levels around Taipei. They collected data on an interactive soundscape map, showing people where they can go to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. Fan Chinhui has been recording natural sounds in Taiwan for more than 20 years. She says when people take the time to stop and listen, they can hear wildlife all around.
像我们现在听到的，像那种鸟就是白头翁，然后偶尔你也会听到像绿袖燕，然后松鼠。
The volunteers, known as peace trackers, travel around the city in search of places with sound levels lower than 55 decibels. It's a threshold recommended by the World Health Organization for residential areas, as excessive exposure to noise can increase the risk of depression, high blood pressure, and high blood sugar. And although Taipei's noise levels are not much higher than the typical European city, its sheer density means there are fewer places people can go to escape. One peace tracker, Chan Jiaming, says the places like the riverside, temples and parks are a good start.
让我比较惊讶的是，像我们平常都会做的捷运，已经习惯它的音量大小。但其实测量起来，它其实一直在侵害我们的耳朵，它的分贝其实都有到80-90以上。
The volunteers loaded the data they collected onto an app to create a map that visualizes the noise levels around Taipei.
这张地图上面啊，大概有180个点位，所以红色部分就是大于55分贝，蓝色就是小于55分贝哈。
And on top of the volunteers' data, the scientists have developed a sound box that processes real-time sound data to create a 3D map of Taipei. The map changes depending on altitude and time of day.
那上面的噪音盒子，这个所谓声音盒子的 soundbox 的部分，是我们新开发出来的哈。好，所以我们现在其实可以每1个小时可以产制1张所谓的台北市的3维噪音地图。
When the researchers first started the sound map last year, they found 3 in 10 Taipei residents lived in red zones. They say it's helping find the source and solutions to excessive and consistent noise. But for those who can't wait for those solutions, the map can show the way to the city's most peaceful places. Joseph Wu and Laurel Stewart for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally today, we leave you with footage of the Christmas spectacular performance by the Radio City Rockettes in New York. I'm Philip Broussard, take care, and we'll see you next time.